Hey, this is Adam Messer here, and my special guest today is Ryan Dunn from Afterlife Tours. And Ryan, you have just recently done your investigation at Moon River Brewing Company, right?
Yeah, we did one on October 13th and another one on October 20th. So back-to-back, 2 Sundays in a row.
So you were on the show a couple months back with Kim, your wife, and you were talking about some of the investigations. Can you tell us some updates about the new one?
Yeah, so we just did Moon River. We did 2 public events on the 13th and the 20th of this month. And so far, we're still going through evidence, but we had people getting physically touched. We had one person get scratched. We got quite a few pieces of EVPs or audio recordings. One of the most interesting ones was on the second floor staircase where a shooting happened in 1832. The ghost of the guy that died there has been known to push people down the stairs. And we caught an EVP right over my left shoulder of a deep man's voice saying, "I'm behind you."
No way.
Which was pretty scary.
That was James...
James Stark was the one shot and killed. They think he's the one pushing people.
Okay, so the guy actually, during your investigation, was there?
We think so. We think we actually came into contact with James Stark.
Was everybody okay?
It was really weird feeling on the stairs. Right before it happened, I had this ominous cold feeling right behind me. And then right after that, I hear this voice in my recorder after I played it back of a deep male saying, "I'm behind you."
Okay, so that kind of freaks me out. I'm gonna be honest with you, because we just did that Most Terrifying Places Travel Channel. They interviewed you as your paranormal investigator, and I actually played the role of James Stark as a historical reenactor. And that really freaks me out because during the shooting, I wasn't really aware of the story behind the guy.
Right.
And I didn't get to watch your interview. So when I watched the show for the first time, was the first time I got to see the interview and got to hear about this guy. I knew they had a little scuffle and all that, but can you tell the backstory for that?
Yeah, so it happened originally. It started at the Moon River was originally the old city hotel built in 1821. And it was the oldest hotel in Savannah, predating the Marshall House and any other hotel downtown. And, not only was it a hotel, but the bar was a place where a lot of people came to drink. It was a very social time in the 1800s. You meet a lot of people traveling, so a lot of business connections were made. And there was a well-respected Jewish doctor named Dr. Philip Minus. He was a local, having some cocktails and some friends at the bar. And there's another guy in town that night staying at the hotel named James Stark. He was in town for about a week doing business. He was from Glenn County, a few counties over. And he was a state legislator. So James Stark started shouting these derogatory racist comments to this Jewish doctor. The doctor approaches Stark and demands an apology, and Stark refuses. He then challenges him to a duel. Stark wouldn't agree to the terms for the duel. He's kind of backtracking and trying to avoid getting into a gunshot fight. Yeah,
they were telling me that he was kind of like a more bark than bite.
Exactly. He was running his mouth. When the doctor called him out on it, Stark was kind of backtracking. Yeah. But he refused to apologize for his derogatory comments. So 2 days later, the doctor had rented a room on August 10th, 1832, up on the 3rd floor of the old hotel. And as he's walking the staircase from the 2nd to the 3rd floor, he hears someone shouting at him again. And he looks up, and there's James Stark coming down the stairs. So Stark reaches in his coat pocket like he's going to draw a weapon. And the doctor gets his pistol out first and fires a shot directly into Stark's chest. And Stark dropped dead. The bullet went out on the exit wound in his spine and killed him instantly. And he fell dead on the staircase.
Oh, wow.
But the problem was, when the police arrived, there was no weapon on on James Stark. So the doctor was taken to prison with murder. But he was acquitted about 5 months later, and it took the jury less than 2 hours to decide his fate. So I feel like Savannah kind of looked out for our local and swept it under the rug and figured good riddance to this racist guy, James Stark.
Right. And back then, though, that was, even though it was still racist in today's terms,
right?
Even back then, that was considered derogatory.
It was, and see, and even though back then in the 1800s, Savannah was rampant with racism. The hotel opened in 1821. The shooting happened in 1832.
And there was still slavery.
Exactly, we still had slavery, so we were definitely not anywhere where we needed to be with racism.
Yeah.
But the doctor had come over his family had come over on one of the first boats arriving the same year our colony was founded in 1733.
Yeah, Savannah has a very old and strong Jewish history.
Right, so his family had been well respected in town for years. So he was a very well respected, prominent man in town.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people were going to put up with the way Stark was treating this local. And Stark wasn't even from Savannah, so
yeah.
Savannah likes to take care of their locals.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about the community in Savannah I think is really awesome, is that we do support each other. With the show, you were being interviewed, and you let me know, say, hey man, they're looking for some extras This is the guy's contact information. I think you put it on Facebook.
Right.
And I just happened to be off that day. I mean, it was like a odd coincidence that the day that they were shooting, I was off work. I sent the guy a message and said, hey, and I don't want to share his information on here because I don't want him getting, blown up with people like, hey, I want to be on TV.
Right.
But I sent him the information and I just, sent him my picture and, stuff. And it just happened to be a good fit for what they needed. And so we were out there shooting all day and I played this guy. Actually, I remember the scene where we did the reenactment of the push.
Right.
And can you talk more about the contractor's wife?
Yeah, so this happened many years after the hotel had closed. The hotel closed in the 1860s, and it was closed for good. So over the years, it was a storage warehouse for different companies, just used as basically, there's an oyster company, a lumber company, they'd use it for storage. And Moon River bought the place in 1999 and opened one of the first breweries in Savannah, craft breweries. And 2 years later, in 2001, they had hired a contractor to renovate the second, third, and fourth floors. So one by one, within the first month and a half, all of his guys had quit. And they were saying they would see apparitions of people in period clothing walking past them, walking through the walls upstairs. Some days they'd come back to work and their tools had been scattered everywhere and work had been shredded to pieces. And so they felt there's evil spirits causing this activity. And the contractor, after his men had quit, decides he's going to keep working until he gets a new crew. And about a week goes by and his wife brings him lunch on the third floor and they finish eating. So later, she's walking down the same staircase James Stark had been murdered on many years before. And she gets maybe 2 or 3 stairs down, and she said she felt 2 cold hands on her shoulders and a violent shove from behind. Oh. She tumbled down the entire staircase and broke her right ankle, and the contractor quit immediately.
Oh, wow.
And that was 18 years ago, and Moon River still hasn't renovated the second, third, or fourth floors. And the third and fourth had no electricity.
They keep it barred off too.
Exactly, because the office is on the second floor. They use it a little bit, and we bring our ghost tours up to the second floor. Mm-hmm. And on the overnights, you're allowed in the entire building after you sign a bunch of waivers and sign your life away. But the third and fourth have no power, and there's an elevator shaft on the third and fourth that drops all the way to the basement from the old hotel.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
So if you don't even know where you're going, you can fall 3 or 4 stories to your death. I mean, it's a dangerous building upstairs.
I thought the basement was really creepy.
The basement has a lot of heavy stuff too. There's a lot of activity down there.
We did some scenes shooting there. I think they did your interview there.
Yep, I did my interview in the basement.
And it was a really bad thing. Can you tell me more about the stuff that went on in the basement? Because I know that they said something about like they used the upper floors for like the hospital for the yellow fever.
Right, in 1876, during our last yellow fever epidemic, it was converted into a hospital for women and children. But the basement, a lot of the activity down there they've seen is a little boy they've nicknamed Toby. Uh-huh. And they think he's the ghost of a child that maybe died in the hospital in 1876. And he runs around the basement a lot. They've also seen a woman in the basement and the upper floors they call the Lady in Black. And she always wears a black cloak. It's an elderly woman. And she has been known to physically attack staff, guests, and investigators on tours and on overnights and things. So a lot of people have seen this woman roaming around. They don't know who she is. And if I had to guess, I'd say she's probably a nurse or a nun from the old hospital. And she's probably upset they've turned this quiet hospital into a loud, raucous brewery.
I can imagine. Can you walk us through what an investigation is like? For somebody like, one of the things I love about what you do, you and Kim and your team does, is that you look for the historical aspects of the investigation. And, can you tell us more, like kind of walk us through what it's like for that investigation?
Yeah, a few weeks prior to any case, we spend many hours meticulously doing a full timeline of the location at the Historical Society. And once we built up the timeline, we cross-referenced deaths, obituaries, and looking for any types of things that happened in that location. After that, we've got a full history of the property. We know who died where, what happened, who could be haunting it. We conduct a series of interviews with any of the clients. If it's a restaurant, any employees or managers, or if it's a house, any of the tenants. And we try to find out where they've seen activity and where things happen. That way we know where to focus the investigation. And then the night we arrive, we spend about an hour setting up anywhere from 8 to 12 infrared cameras hooked to a huge DVR system and a monitor. That way we've got infrared night vision surveillance covering all the haunted areas. And then we go room to room conducting EVP sessions, looking for audio recordings, doing thermal imaging scans using FLIR cameras, EMF detectors, temperature gauges, motion sensors. So we've got a lot of toys we use to try to communicate with the dead.
That's pretty awesome. I know that it's very expensive, the equipment that you use, and you've got a lot of gear. You built that up over the years, though, right?
Yeah, I remember when I first started, man. I had a couple audio recorders, a cheap little K2 meter, and a little point-and-click camera, and I could fit it all in a backpack. Now we've got like 4 huge Pelican cases full of stuff, probably 12 tripods, flat screens. I mean, we've got a ton of stuff, and we're always adding more.
I know that you're working on the next book, and
right.
the investigation stuff is going to be in that next book. Can you give us like a little preview of something that I know that you had the James Stark, like
right,
that incident.
Yeah, and so that was in my first book. The third book I'm working on is my Savannah Afterlife 3. It'll be my third series of cases we've done in Savannah, and I'm also working on St. Augustine's Afterlife. It'll be my first one. But Savannah's Afterlife 3 is going to have some really cool stories in it. I talk about my investigation at the Kehoe House, which is a high-end 4-star B&B. That was a funeral home and crematory for almost 75 years.
What?
So, yeah, there's a lot of activity there. That's going to be a really fun one in the book.
My son and I were talking about that, like when buildings change hands and they have that history with them. We were going downtown and there was this old 7-Eleven that's like kind of an upscale little restaurant
right.
now. And I was like, yeah, that used to be a little old gas station with a mechanical shop with it. And there's like this nice little restaurant there now.
Right.
And my son and I, we always laugh like, oh yeah, you just a 7-Eleven. I mean, that's kind of freaky though. Like it used to be a crematorium.
Crematorium and funeral home. The Goetz family owned it. I also have the Davenport House, which is the headquarters for the historic Savannah Foundation. Mm-hmm. It's amazing we had access to that historic home. I mean, they don't just let anybody in. It took me years to get access to that. Wormslow Plantations can be in the new book. The story about the train crash that happened in Meldrum, Georgia in 1950s. We investigated the train crash site. That was a horrifying story.
What about recent? Have you had any experiences with recent hauntings, like a newer, like the last 20 years or so type thing?
I have, not in the new book. But in my second book, Savannah's Afterlife 2, we talk about a case we did at Alligator Soul Restaurant on the north end of Telfair Square, where the guy haunting the place is the lady's husband, her late husband, Hilbo Craig.
Oh, I remember Hilbo talking about that. Yeah.
He died in 2007, man.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very recent, 12 years ago.
I didn't realize that when we were talking about it before.
So he's haunting the place, and we got a recording in the basement of a deep man's voice. When I said, who is there? He said, Hillary.
Yeah.
And it turns out Hilbo Craig's full name was Hillary Craig.
And these EVPs, you put some of them on your website, right?
Right. They're on our website at afterlifetours.net. And, of course, if you want to hear a lot of them, you can come out on our tour.
Yeah.
We got tours in St. Augustine and Savannah, and we've got a ton of EVPs on our tour routes.
I think one of the things that I find appealing with your just the whole approach that you have is the historical side of it. I really appreciate that, because, there's a lot of stuff out there that's unexplained. We talked about that before, and there's a ton of stuff out there that people kind of play off, and they play it as hokey, and they kind of spin it up but you and your team, you present it like, okay, this is what we found. You don't try to spin it. You don't try to, Savannah's creepy enough.
Right.
And that's one of the things I like about, what you do.
Yeah, we spend a lot of hours working with the Georgia Historical Society and the St. Augustine Historical Society to try to make sure that what we're having is 100% fact-based. There is no BS on our tour.
And why is that such an important focus for you? Because, as a journalist, I know journalistic integrity is really important. And I know, the paranormal side of stuff, it's not taken so seriously.
Right.
People, automatically, are skeptical. But the style and the approach that you have, I see it more like a journalistic style. Yeah,
and that's one of our things. I actually was getting an Uber ride home last night from a tour guide that I won't say what company she works for. But her exact words were to me were, we all have to BS quite a bit, give a lot of little, stretch the truth for our stories. And I said, why? Gosh. I said, ours are 100% true. And she said, there's no way you could tell all the truth. And I'm like, it's really easy. You do the research and tell the truth. It's not hard.
I was going to say, truth, is stranger than fiction a lot of times. And Savannah definitely has a ton of strange truth.
Oh, and I hate walking by these tours, and not even are their stories wrong, their facts are messed up. I heard a tour a couple years ago that went by the theater where we know John Wilkes Booth performed at Savannah Theater years ago with his brother Edwin. And the lady proceeded to tell her pub crawl that he's the one that killed Kennedy.
What?
And unless he had a time machine, there's no way. And I thought she made a
John
mistake.
Wilkes Booth killed Kennedy.
And then 2 weeks later, I walked by the same tour. She's saying the exact same thing.
No.
And the pub crawl never even caught it. And I can't imagine what other crap she's telling her tours.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's one of many that I walk by here and just...
Well, and that's the thing too. Tourism is such a huge industry in Savannah. But that, that's your business.
Right.
But you're not trying to sell people on yes, it's entertaining. But to me, I'm a nonfiction reader. I love reading nonfiction, and I enjoy finding and hearing those stories. And the way that you present it it's a nonfiction based.
And that's what makes the stories fun. Nobody wants to take a ghost tour and then have such an exciting experience. And then after the tour, you're Googling the stories to read more, and you find out everything you heard for the past 2 hours is fake.
Yeah.
People still want the truth, and we talk about some very gruesome incidents. I mean, lobotomies, yellow fever epidemics, and this is all murders, suicides. Yeah. And these are all things that we are going to tell you that all happened, backed up with real evidence and EVPs and video apparitions.
Oh yeah, I love a good ghost story. I love a good urban legend, But when some of the stuff that you've, like the last time we were talking, I literally got chill bumps from the EVPs when you were playing them and you were explaining it to me. I mean, it freaked me out.
It's amazing, and we've done probably close to 150, 200 cases in the past 10 years, so we've got a ton of evidence.
You also take precautions, and what would you say to someone out there? Because I mean, like this, honestly, there's so much stuff that's unexplained, and I don't think people understand that there's a lot of stuff out there. You take precautions when you get ready to do your investigations. If somebody's interested in trying to find out more about that kind of stuff, what's a good way that they can, get started in it?
Interesting. My wife has just recently opened a shop about a month ago, and a lot of it spawned from protecting ourselves from what we do. It's called The Other Side, and she's going to have a website open pretty shortly. But her name's Kim Dunn on Instagram. But it's really cool. You can find a lot of her stuff. She does protection powders, a lot of things that we use in our own life to make sure that we're protected, using a lot of herbs known for protection. She sells a lot of cool stuff like that.
You get holy water from St. John's.
We get holy water from Cathedral John the Baptist, and we use a lot of that too. She uses a lot with crystals, and it's really cool because now her shop also sells a lot of other metaphysical things.
Yeah.
And she's making homemade Savannah voodoo dolls. So we've got some, it's kind of cool that we're getting into that side too, and it's been her dream for a while.
Yeah.
But a lot of what she makes, we use to protect ourselves too.
Yeah, I noticed that when she launched her store. That's one of the reasons why I was wanting to ask you about it, because I was like, how do y'all do this?
Right.
It's not easy. I mean, I pray. I believe in God. I pray, and but there's a lot of stuff out there like, it's kind of creepy. Right. Savannah's very freaky, and there's a lot of good things about Savannah. And if you want to definitely find out more about the afterlife here in Savannah, where can they go to find out your stuff online?
Yeah, so you can get all of our tickets for our tours at afterlifetours.net. And right now we run 2 different tours. The Voices of the Dead tour at 8 and the Restless Souls tour at 10 in Savannah. And in St. Augustine, we're running one route at 8 and 10:30, but we're about to have a second route open. We've already written the entire second tour, got the evidence, and pretty shortly we'll be unwrapping that for our second route. So St. Augustine will have 2 tour options too. But as soon as you go to afterlifetours.net, you can buy tickets for both tours. And then we're also doing an event April 5th of this upcoming year at Moon River. We're doing another overnight. And you can buy tickets from that by calling our office at 912-398-7820.
So they'll have an opportunity to, like, if they missed this last one, they'll have an opportunity to do the next one?
Yeah, and that's going to be April 5th. It's a Sunday night. We got it for 6 hours.
That's going to be really freaky.
It's going to be fun. We have access to all 5 floors.
No way.
4 floors in the basement.
They when we were recording, they wouldn't even let us on that 5th floor.
They wouldn't even let you up there. That's interesting. And they won't let Travel Channel up there yet. They let us come in and we get the entire building. So that's awesome.
Well, I don't know if it was Travel Channel or not, but I know they told us for safety reasons that we couldn't go up there. But that is really cool that you'll be able to go up there and check that out. Man, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. It's always great, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. You've been listening to The Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, with our special guest, Ryan Dunn. You can check out his information at afterlifetours.net. And then the phone number again, one more time?
Yeah, it's 912-398-7820.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, brother.